Hey guys, how's it going? My name's Chris, and today I'm going to be showing you how you can remove dirt and sensor dust, anything that gets on your lens or on your sensor while you're shooting that you don't know about and that you have to remove in post. I have a few different methods here for you, so yeah, let's get right into it. So the first one that we're going to go over is this dust and scratches effect in Premiere, which can be really helpful. So one thing that's worth mentioning here is that this effect is useful in some ways on some clips and definitely not on others. So I have a clip here that I used for one of my short films that I just made, and this clip is stationary. It's not moving. The only thing that's moving is me and my co-actor here. So it's worth mentioning this because you can see these sort of dust spots here and how they're where they are relative to the shot. Now, if this were to go over this little, curb here in this green, or if it were to move over these trees and then come back over here, it would be a lot harder to remove this. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit later. But this method is definitely good for something where these dust spots are a lot smaller. These ones up here are going to be really easy to work with, but this big one right here and this one over here are very hard to work with when the shot's moving. But anyways, let's get into it. So you want to drag this dust and scratches down on this clip down here, and we're going to take this top clip and we're going to open a Photoshop document, I guess you would call it, with this with the frame that you export. So go ahead and export that frame. Okay guys, so once you have this open here in Photoshop, you're going to want to create a new layer over this background. And on this new layer, you're just going to want to cover up all these little spots that you have wherever they may be, so it helps to zoom in. So usually you're going to want to use a bright color for this. If you're working with a clip that's like very dark and it's indoors and there's not a lot of bright colors, I would suggest going with like a very bright green. But because I kind of have these trees back here and this little grass on this curb, I'm going to use a bright red. So you're just going to want to cover all these up in your new layer that you made. And now you're just going to want to turn this background off and export it. So you're going to save this as a PNG, or rather export it as a PNG. Okay, so now that you have this all done, you're going to drag your red dots that you just made in Photoshop over here. You're going to nest these two clips together, your dots and your top clip. Remember, the dust and scratches should be on this bottom clip, and I'll explain that in a second. But so what you're going to want to do here is go over here and type in color key. Drag that onto this nested clip. Go over here to the color picker and select the color that you want to use, you want to remove. I usually set it to like 8. I found that that's what works for me, but you're going to want to experiment and drag it to different levels. But usually you want to use the lowest value, that still gets all the colors removed. So, and then this edge thin is just here for when there's these little edges still left over. You set this, you don't want to set this too high, because the higher you take it, it's just going to start removing stuff from your actual footage. So I'm going to leave it there at 2. So now you can see that the red's all gone, and we're going to go in here to dust and scratches, and we're going to turn this radius up. So like I said, each clip that you're really working with is kind of like a snowflake. That's one of the things that I had to go through in making my last short film. So it's really important to just kind of experiment with all these different ways and really see what works. But this one especially, like, it's so tough to work with it's so tough to work with these clips, but you can kind of start to see, these dust spots that were up here are gone, and this one's a little bit harder to see, this one not so much. But this is okay because we can really just crop this out, and it's not going to take away from our footage too much if we literally just move this over, however many pixels. But yeah, this one's still a problem. So, but you can see that the majority of them here are removed, and that's pretty much what you're gonna do with this dust and scratches, is get like those little spots. These big squigglies here are, you know, really hard to work with, but I'm gonna show you how you can get rid of this one here and make it look a little bit less noticeable. The next method that we're going to look at is this sort of mask method that you can use if you've already gone through. So the next method that we're going to look at is a masking method. So if you found that dust and scratches didn't work for you and you got some of these blemishes out but not all of them, you can try to go through this process. So it's pretty much the same sort of process. You're going to duplicate these clips. And now that you have both of them, you're going to want to make a mask on this top clip. So you're going to go over here to opacity. And you're just going to make a mask. So we're just going to be working with this guy down here, because he was particularly hard to work with when I was doing this project. So I got all of the dust spots out of the sky that I needed to get, and this was the only one that was really left. So I'm going to show you pretty much how I did it. You're just going to drag this mask right here. I'm going to drag it to the side and have it stop like right there. So you have it to the side now. You're going to want to drag this bottom clip over. Other way. You're going to drag this bottom clip over so that it covers that spot. So I had to drag that over horizontally, but you can kind of see there's still a little bit of a discrepancy here. So I'm literally just going to either take this one up or one down. And yeah, so that ended up making it, you know, pretty even. And now this is, I mean, I would call it like entirely unnoticeable. You would never know that there was a big, you know, spot right here. And if you play it, you know. So yeah, that's the next method that I used. Now keep in mind, like, this is so hard to work with for moving clips, where this is going to go over all sorts of different things, but yeah, this can be very effective in specific situations. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about here is if none of these methods really worked, or if you could only get to a certain point with them, is just really getting creative with the tools that you have in Premiere or After Effects, which is not something that people really talk about because it's kind of just a cover-up. It's more of like just a cosmetic change. You're not fixing the real problem, but there's a few ways that you can do this. In my case, I was making a short film that started off as what was supposed to be like a car commercial from the 90s. So I had like this old VHS type look over it. And that really like got rid of everything. You could barely see any of the dust that we'd worked with. And then this was after I removed it with the red dots and everything. And then, you know, some of the masking methods. But if you don't have that, you can, there's a lot of stuff that you can still do. Usually, and it depends on what you're making too. So, and like I said, like each clip is really like a snowflake for this. Like I also worked on a video where I was trying to make the viewer feel like they were in a dream sort of state. So I was using a lot of different blurs and things like that. And in that case, it definitely would have, you know, taken the visibility out of these things, out of these, you know, you can't, once you get to a certain point, you can't really see those spots. And like I said, this is just one way, and it's not a way that you want to use for most clips because you want your clips to look really nice and you don't want them to be blurry. But it's just a thought. So another thing that you could do here, if you are still looking for options and you want something that still feels a little bit natural, is to throw a lens flare on it. You can come over here and see, you know, the types of options that you have. Usually I use this one. So I feel like it looks a little bit more natural. And you can see it's already covering up, and you know, depending on how you really maneuver this, you can set it so that it's on like a reflective surface, maybe up here or, you know, what have you. I like to, if the shot's moving, I like to just throw a keyframe on here and just have it sort of move across, maybe down a little bit. And what that'll do with a moving shot is that it'll just feel a lot more, natural. But again, this is a stationary shot, so it's not going to make a lot of sense to use here. But like I said, it's just another way if you really have lost all hope and you need to, cover this up quickly. This is a great way to do it. So this last method that you're going to do is you still have this clip here. And if you can't get everything really out that you wanted to, we're going to go and take this over to After Effects to try one of the things in there. I personally don't find that this is very effective, but some people do. It is definitely effective in certain situations. So what you're going to want to do is just right click this clip and then hit replace with After Effects composition. I already have it open, so I'm just going to drag it over here so you guys can see. We're here in After Effects, and what we're going to want to do is create a mask over this spot that we want to remove. So now that we have this little spot here, we're going to head on over to the mask and hit subtract. Now you can see it's a black box here. And we're going to use this tool called Content Aware Fill. So you can see it's right down here. We have this clip selected. What we're going to do is generate fill layer. Now I've heard a few different people say different things about what kind of fill method you should use, and honestly it just depends on the clip. There's a good article online that you can see. It tells you what's really better for what. But for me, I'm going to use Edge Blend right now, just so you can kind of see. And then you just click Generate Fill Layer, and it'll make that fill layer and work through this, frame by frame, until eventually it's all ready to go. And you'll be able to see, kind of tries to blend what it sees around the object that you're trying to remove, or the surface that you're trying to remove, or whatever, and it tries to just mimic that in the spot that it normally is. And like I said, I don't think it does a very good job, but for some clips it definitely does. For this one, not so much. But you can start to see, how it's working, and it'll go through all the frames here and try to remove that spot one by one. So that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it helped you out. If it did, leave a thumbs up, and yeah, thanks for watching.